Hmm? Ah! Oh.
500th performance of My Baby Loves Windows felt more like a slug than a celebration.
Major, I think that.
Wave your words to shore, please.
I'm a fierce vampire trapped in the body of a little girl. I'm reminded of it every night of my existence, buttoning up this dress and singing and smiling while the mortals laugh and point. I relive every condescending look or fucking comment I have ever had to suffer. I have lost my passion for work on stage. I think I prefer backstage work.
Sam,
Yes, Mater?
what are you holding in your hand?
Popcorn bag and a prophylactic.
And why, as the author of My Baby Loves Windows, would you humble yourself thus?
It's a privilege to work in this theater. I do what I'm asked, and I do it gratefully.
Your nomadic passion, Claudia, owes your playwright an apology.
Sorry, Sam.
You're grand.
Hey listeners, welcome to the show. I'm Danny.
And I'm Mark.
And I'm Lara.
This is a spoilful podcast about Interview with a Vampire, Season 2, Episode 4. I want you more than anything in the world.
In this episode, Claudia finally protests about having to perform as a child since it's bad enough she's a grown vampire in an adolescent body. Armand orders her to stay in the baby costume, on stage and off, until she rediscovers her passion for performing. Daniel begins to unravel more about his vampiric hosts, as well as his own muddled past with them.
Yes. What are your initial thoughts, Mark?
Well, it took me 2 watches, and I do really enjoy the episode itself as a whole. It was very enlightening on a lot of things. We see a little bit more of Louis that we didn't see before, which I found very cool. We saw a little bit more with Claudia, which I wanted to see, and I think it takes from the book, like what Lara had mentioned before, with the dressmaker and everything else. And also, I think we get deeper into the story about the Coven and their feeling about Claudia, as well as Louis and Armand's feelings towards Louis, and then Claudia picking up that as well. So I really enjoyed it overall. Like I said, I'm probably going to have to watch this another 2 more times to really appreciate even more. But overall, I did enjoy it.
How about you, Laura? How did you like it?
For me, this was a pretty heartbreaking episode, mostly because Claudia, who is one of my favorite characters, she's just going through this decline and this further disappointment with the theater troupe. We get the very sad breakup of Louis and Lestat in the end, even though it's not real Lestat. It feels like Louis is mentally and emotionally finally breaking up with Lestat. Yeah. And initially, it felt like it was a little bit slow on first watch, but on second watch, I think I was just not being so anxious and letting the story just unfold for me, and digging a little bit deeper into it. So I would give it 8 out of 10 wooden stakes to my heart, because they broke my heart this episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Yeah, definitely 8 out of 10. And it was heartbreaking, yeah. But I like the enlightening scenes that we do get out of it. That was what my takeaway was. You, Danny?
The first time I watched it, I was kind of maybe not focused on it, and I was kind of like, ooh, this is going to be like a really bad episode, and I'm going to give it a lot of bad critiques. But after watching it a couple more times, I just started to realize that I'm feeling for Claudia now, because she was so excited to be in this like production, and you just see her downfall. And then now I think they're going to kind of touch into the novel, where she, wants to explore more her adulthood, because she plays this kid on like stage, and it just kind of reminds her that, she's a kid, and she's trying to move away from that, because she's a child with a mind of, I don't know. I guess at this point she's like been a vampire for 50 years.
Yeah,
so,
she's somewhere like between 40 and 50 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's like she's not getting to grow up because she plays this kid. And just her discovery of realizing that she didn't have anybody duped, especially Armand.
Or the
That
coven.
well, she doesn't know the coven yet. She just realizes that it's not that she didn't fool Armand.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming she still believes that she has fooled the coven and is,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she at least believes she's friends with Santiago.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point to start talking about. I think would be Santiago, because he calls her out on a few things, and I found that very interesting because she throws her diary into the rat trap, and he winds up taking it out, saying, "I've read it already." So basically, he's like calling her out, saying he knows certain things, but yet him and the coven actually make a trip to Claudia and Louis' place and ransack it to get information, to get rid of both of them, because he sees both of them as a threat. Armand kind of points it out that no, actually Louis points it out that Santiago wants Armand's position in the coven as being the matron.
But at this point, Claudia still thinks that Santiago is her friend. They buddy up in the backstage area by the wet boxes. He hears her confessions and she hears his, and she feels like he's someone that she can trust at the moment.
Which she can't, honestly, because he's there. I think this is the vicious end, or close to the vicious end of Claudia at this point. We already see issues back then and now of Armand and Louis in their relationship, which I found very much interesting. I love the bickering, though, between they're in another room and Malloy's there with his computer and he's hearing all this, and it all has to do and stem from the pictures that Louis had taken, but Armand has misplaced, and I guess Malloy mentions like, oh, maybe the other Rashid got rid of them or something. And all these meant a lot to Louis. And Louis was like, no, this is from New Orleans. This is not this. And there were only select few pictures that were there amongst from when they were in France at that time. And during that time, too, you could see the manipulation with Armand to Malloy. And there's something that we get flashbacks into with Malloy that Armand brings up by fishing through his head. Something about a woman that is in a bag over her head.
I think it's a man.
Yeah, or it was somebody.
In a plastic bag.
Yeah, it's something that was. It's a hidden, deep-rooted memory that I think is a result of what we see at the very end. But we do see it in the past of Armand and Louis arguing as a couple, and again in present day. So there's a lot of deceit and hiding between both of each other within this relationship. But the ultimate outcome, and which I found very funny, was Louis saying, it was Armand calling Louis maitre, or maitre. I'm saying it wrong. But and then Armand, like, I was like, what? He's bowing to Louis at that point back then and being in control now, which was like,
yeah,
wow.
There's an interesting power dynamic going on between those two, I think.
Yeah. It's the maitre. Sorry, I keep getting it wrong.
Well, if we go back to Claudia's decline and disillusionment, that was one of my first points. And, she's been forced to wear this Baby Lou costume. She's a hit. Mm-hmm. And she even has her own fanboys and fangirls in the audiences who cosplay as her.
Yep.
They even added a French performance back into the show because it's become so popular. And that play, for one, is just disturbing. About a little child who wants to be free, not too subtle for Claudia, right? Mm-hmm. She's a child who wants to be free and she wants to fly away, jumps out the window, and then ends up dying on stage, and everyone's just thrilled about it. They love it so much. It's so avant-garde. But Armand, after the show, becomes a little Stanley Kubrick who played Wendy in The Shining, Mark. I know you know it.
Oh, you're talking about Shelley Duvall?
Shelley Duvall, yeah.
Oh
Armand
yeah.
is Stanley Kubrick to Shelley Duvall. He's abusing her. He's telling her how she has no passion, and he's just being the crude, rude director trying to push her to get what he wants. And she's just like, I don't want to do this role anymore. It's degrading. I'd
Yeah.
rather, as she says later, lick the blood off the stage like Sam does than play this role anymore. And he tells her she has to wear the costume day and night. He's just becoming a dictator of a director.
Yeah, on and off stage, which is like it's like literally he Armand is literally tormenting Claudia at this point. And it's so sad because she wants to fit in with the coven, and like you said, she's cozying up to Santiago, but we as viewers are seeing Santiago, he has some sort of ulterior motive. And we do see an exchange between Santiago and Armand, which I really, really enjoyed, because he was just like lurking in the shadows, and he just grabs him out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa, that is awesome. It's showing Armand's authority, being an authority on this.
Well, even with them having that dinner, and I didn't realize that Louis had such power that he would be fast enough to get Santiago's tongue. That threw me off. And then when Armand just like froze the room and then made all of them bow on the table, and then he's like, if you want to be fledglings, do it in the dead of night. Don't be doing it in front of people. Da, da, da. I was like, holy crap. I didn't realize like the power dynamic and who has like stronger powers. Because even like with Santiago, like getting this small group to spy on Armand, or not Armand, Louis, as he goes on his hunt. They're so they can search the room or whatever. I'm like, how are they able to block out these thoughts so that Armand doesn't catch on to these things? Or is Armand in the know of what they're doing and just letting things happen, just letting things play out? So I'm curious to see that part, to see if Armand, because again, he used Lestat to get rid of the Children of the Darkness.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if he's letting whatever is going on with this coven to allow it to be destroyed by Louis, because he knows that Claudia, her numbers are, or her days are numbered. So I'm intrigued to see where Armand plays in this whole thing, because I feel like there's a lot more going on, and I am trying to figure out. I'm trying to puzzle like these memories that Daniel Malloy is coming up with, where Armand's in his head and he's like, you had this high school crush and you said that you would only, or no, this high school person had a crush on you and you said that you would only fuck her if she had a bag over her head, and just, I'm like, what relevance does these like little flashes of Armand and Daniel Mello's head, which is causing him to have headaches? Like what is that? Like, what is that? Is that just, him trying to get into Daniel Malloy's head and then just to kind of throw him off his game, I guess? I don't know.
Well, I found an interesting theory about that, and I will say it's not my theory. I was watching someone do a reaction on this episode, and I think her name's the Naughty Librarian, just to give credit where credit's due. And she did mention something strange, but about the fact that Daniel has Parkinson's disease, which is a neurodegenerative disease. And it could be that when they had their interview back in the 70s, if Armand put some sort of memory block into his head, maybe the Parkinson's is somehow wearing away that memory block, and maybe some of these memories are coming forward now. I just found that a really interesting theory, and maybe one of the reasons why he's been afflicted with Parkinson's in the story when he wasn't, obviously didn't have that in the books.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
It does make sense. And the fact that when we get towards the end of the episode, we start to see more information come about the original, I think it was 1973 in San Francisco, the first time he interviewed Louis. Mm-hmm. And he's getting flashback memories, and you do see Armand there at one point. So all these memories are sudden rush into his head. So with how it's degenerating on him neurologically with these mental blocks, maybe a lot of the memories are coming back full fold, like you said. And now he is able to remember certain things, but Armand is still torturing him in certain ways to control that interview, to basically give the story that puts both Armand and Louis in a shining light in comparison to all the darkness that when they encountered each other back in 73 or whatever Danial is looking to dig up. It really touched a bad nerve on Armand as soon as Malloy started talking about how the fire erupted in the theater, and Armand's like, we didn't give you that information. Where did you get that information? And it was like, well, he had somebody else do external work to look at that information according to him. But we all know that it was handed to him by probably the Talamasca or Mossad or whoever.
It's in the files.
Yeah, it's
and
in those files.
We also see in the Talamasca files, we see the pictures that they took of Louis, or I'm sorry, he sees some pictures of him with Louis, and then he sees some pictures of him being carried out almost as if he's drunk or passed out or drugged out or something by two other figures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's going to be an interesting thing, because in my mind, again, when they're doing when he's reviewing these research things that he's getting on his computer, I'm trying to figure out why Armand is not reacting to the fact that the Talamasca has reached out to Daniel Malloy, because I'm like, okay, why are you not confronting Daniel and being like, I see that the Talamasca has reached out to you, why are you hiding that? Why are you, because last episode he was trying to escape because all the stuff started popping up.
Yeah.
And then this episode he's doing the research. So I'm like, is Armand not getting into his head for some reason? Or is he in his head and just, again, letting things play out?
I think he's letting
Armand definitely seems suspicious, but I don't know if he knows and he's just letting things play, like he's sitting back to see how things are going to play out with this, or if he's just being, deliberately obtuse and just trying not to get into Daniel's head for Louis' sake, or what.
He's playing coy. It's like he's playing a game of poker at this point. And he doesn't want Louis in on it, obviously. So this is, you got three players at the table. So Malloy is trying to call out whatever he can and point it out because that's who he is as a reporter, and trying to get all the information. But he's also being given information under the table by somebody else. Louis wants to be very honest to get this information out there, but still feeling that he has that majority stake in the relationship with Armand, that they're equals, or if not, they care for one another to understand each other's role within their relationship. Whereas as viewers are starting to see that Armand is a little bit more trying to be controlling of the situation and interject his point of view. And I think at one point, or because we already had two episodes, we had Louis' point of view of when they met in France. We already had Armand's point of view when they met in France. Now, this is kind of a mix of both of their points of views. and then there was stuff hidden from Louis that Armand hid from Louis over the years of like pictures, because we have that little scene with the I'm forgetting who it was. Somebody was a photography aficionado and talked to him about his pictures. I guess he was looking to sell
He's an
them.
art dealer.
An art dealer, and kept
Louis
saying,
was trying to sell his photography too.
yeah. And he they mentioned a lot of cool things that were in there that a lot of photographers or photo enthusiasts would know about, certain cameras like a Leica and how it would work at night and things of that nature. Our friend Daphne would love the idea of this talk because she loves cameras. Hashtag Run for Your Lives podcast, everybody. Anyhow, I found it very interesting because Louis even realized that some of those images that he had from that time are gone. I can't recall if the picture that he grabbed of Armand during that time, where his fingers kind of, I don't know if it burned or ripped the picture or the image, but when we see it in the future, it's not ripped.
It was burnt.
It was okay.
Burnt.
It was burnt. Okay. And
yeah, Louis came back from that photographer that he was doing, and he was like talking to Lestat, and he was setting them on fire.
Yes,
which I guess is a new unique power that he has. I didn't realize he had.
Oh, go ahead, Danny.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I didn't realize that he had that. I remember he. Oh no, wait, that was Lestat who asked Armand about, like, please teach me that power. But I don't remember Louis doing that, so maybe it's just something that he picked up.
Armand is teaching it to Louis in the bedroom at the beginning of the episode when they're sitting in the bedroom looking at that candle, and Armand is showing like the candle keeps lighting and going out and lighting and going out. And then you talked about Mark, 3 people being in the game. Well, back in Paris, there are also 3 people in the game. It's just that Armand is unaware of one of them as Lestat comes walking into the scene and blows the candle out. Or no, he tries to light his cigarette on the candle and Louis makes it go out again.
Yeah, because it's our ghost Lestat at that point.
And I think the funny thing is, and I especially paid attention to it on my second watch, is every time we see Lestat, that's really just Louis. Lestat is acting as Louis' inner voice.
Yes.
And so every time Lestat says anything or Armand is saying something and, Lestat says, ha, just very indignantly or something like that. Or anytime he's kind of like saying something snide about Armand, that is not Lestat. That is Louis thinking these things about Armand.
In Lestat's voice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking, this relationship is not as lovey-dovey and sweet as we saw a few episodes ago when they came in holding hands to talk to Malloy, and they're both finishing each other's sentences, and they're just the Ozzy and Harriet of vampires. Right now we see them, and they're talking to Daniel, and Daniel will say, oh, well, how did Claudia like you infantilizing her on stage? And Armand says, she loved it, and Louise says I
have the quote. I think
he opposite. Yeah.
It's so funny. He goes, "How did Coven take it?" And Armand goes, "Mostly with good grace." And Louis goes, "They were bitter." At the same time, they say it.
They're both saying the opposite thing, so you can tell that little act they had going for Daniel is starting to wear away now.
Yeah, it's fading. And you could see that just like Lestat's relationship with Louis, Armand's is just as toxic in some ways. It's just that this has been more years than he was with Lestat at that point.
Well, at this point, they've only been, now in Dubai.
In the current day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference. So now it's come to a turmoil. So I'm wondering at the end of this particular interview, who will survive at that point? Will Louis come up on top, or Armand? Will Daniel still be alive at the very end? Who knows?
I love the part when they're talking to Daniel about, or Louis describing to Daniel how it felt when Dreamstat was around,
Yeah.
and he would say things like, "It's almost like I could feel him brush against me. I would reach for his hand, and I could feel it, but I couldn't feel it." And he says it in such a poetic and loving way. And you turn to Armand, and he is just screaming inside. He's just seething. He's like, "That fucker."
He can't stand him. Even though he was the one that created the Theater of the Vampire and helped them with that and created that for them. But yet, in the end, as we all know, it was destroyed. And we haven't yet seen that destruction yet. So we're only we're leading up to that. I think the very end of this particular season, because we're episode 5 now. We have 8 total, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and considering how many times we saw Louis set things on fire in the movie, maybe it wasn't a good idea for Armand to teach Louis the fire trick.
That is true.
Then again, it could be part of his plan. It could be like, oh, I feel like if I give you this ability, you're gonna use it to my advantage of getting rid of this, this last piece of Lestat.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, he thought he left them behind, as it were. So, yeah, I did enjoy those scenes and what they culminated in and what they gave us. It just the scenes that really engaged me most was Claudia and the dressmaker, and then them in their relationship, because obviously we know from the books and what I remember hearing about the books, especially within the film in comparison to it, she has this love or aspiration for this person that she gets involved with. You said it was a doll maker, I think, Lara, in the books or something?
Mm-hmm. In the books,
Yes.
in the movie, it's a doll maker, and Claudia is much younger in those in those iterations. So she falls in, or she catches the admiration of this doll maker because she's a little girl who never grows up. Well, can't quite do that with Claudia now since she's 14 years old. But I kind of like where they're going with our little dressmaker Madeline, because they do kind of start up a begrudging friendship. They're both pretty salty to each other, but then they really fall into this girl talk later on that I just love, because aside from Lestat, my favorite character now is Claudia, because I just feel for her and all the trauma that she's gone through, and that she can just never catch a break. She finally becomes happy for once when she's in Paris, and then all that goes down the drain when her dreams finally do come true and she gets to go on stage, and it's very disappointing for her. So I love Claudia. I like that she's becoming friends with Madeline. I suspect it's going to be a very short-lived relationship, but maybe the showrunners will surprise us.
It's a possibility, because they could change the story in certain ways. I like that whole storyline and arc that they're doing, especially them getting together. We find out that when Claudia sees her again, she talked about how she saw her 2 years before about a dress, and Madeline states flat out, "You look exactly like you did the last time, with the same features and everything else," as she's doing her dress. And then they get into a whole story of Madeline's history herself, how she fell in love with a Nazi. That's why somebody had painted a Nazi swastika on her front window, because she was involved with somebody, and it was her wanting to be with that boy or man that was a soldier, and it was for her affection. So it went south in a certain way. So people in the area think or belittle her of what her affiliation was with during that time. And they get into this whole story, and then she accidentally cuts herself on a pin or something, right?
That's not really what happened.
All right,
No, her menstrual blood was leaking.
Is that what that was? I was thinking the same. Yes, that's what it was. I was like,
Okay.
that's a lot of blood for a
Yeah, yeah. She
I was
said
gonna say that
she was
too.
leaking through. So
Okay. And then Claudia gets the urge and
yeah.
feel
Yeah.
too.
And
That
then
was
she
interesting.
realizes she can't really be friends with a human. This is why they have these boundaries around
Yeah.
vampire and human relationships.
Glad you brought that up. I didn't really catch on to that, and I'm glad I was oblivious.
Oh.
But yeah,
Man. So,
that does make sense though. But it shows that whole thing where they can't be friends together, but you can see Claudia is hurt by that for the fact that she feels an attraction for this person, and she wants that person in their life, which is sad too because she needs that attachment, and we've sensed that for so long.
Yeah, I love that she finally has another woman to talk to about some of the things that have broken her heart over the past few years. I really think she needed that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Especially when she's like describing everything she's been through, and then she just says, maybe I just seek it. Like it's maybe that's what I'm about, is just seeking tragedy, you know. And I'm just like, I've been there. I've sometimes felt like well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna go into some personal stuff. I was in an abusive relationship for 10 and a half years. Ooh. And I remember while in that relationship thinking to myself, this is my punishment for being gay, because like God does not like gays, and so this, I'm bound to be sad for the rest of my life, and this is my punishment for living this lifestyle. And of course, I'm no longer in that mindset, but during that time, I was just like, oh, well, gay people can't be happy because, God doesn't approve of this lifestyle, and therefore being in this abusive relationship is kind of my punishment in that sense. So, and for a while, I was like, maybe I seeked it because of this. So in my mind, that's where my head went when she was describing all this bad stuff that was happening to her. I was like, oh, wow, I remember that. I remember that feeling of feeling hopeless and being like, okay, and just having to accept, like, maybe this is just my life now, because I decided that, like, to be in this relationship and follow this path, as they would say. No. But I'm glad I don't think that way anymore.
Great. It's great.
Me too. I'm so sorry that
I'm so sorry you had to go through that
and feel that. And I don't think it's unique, Danni. I think probably a lot of people go through those experiences too. And I'm so glad you're in a better place now, that you don't feel like that.
Yeah, and it's all about abusive relationships too, by the way. There's also an abusive relationship, not just with Claudia and the world, but it's also with her, Louis, Armand, Lestat, our encounters.
Bruce, especially Bruce.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she utilized that story as a way of that. Well, that's our maker. Yeah. But the thing was, is that, it's a good takeaway of what you're explaining and how it is, and nobody should feel that way, honestly, because it is a toxic relationship. Yeah. Everybody should feel special. Everybody should feel some sort of love, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what sexuality you are. Who cares? The world is the world, and we are independent. We should all love each other and who we are. Mm-hmm. But regardless, I don't want to get into a whole.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Thing. No. It's fine that you brought that up, and I have a lot of problems with people who are against all that, and I have to get in their face. But regardless, it's like you shouldn't be in that toxic relationship, and you should never feel that way about yourself. Just like Claudia, and now she's standing up for herself too, because we see her make that stand with Louis at one point in this. Oh my goodness, that erupted fast because it's her jealousy of what's going on with Armand, her feelings about Louis, about how the coven has treated her, and then basically him ripping into her and explaining. He goes, he goes, I wasn't happy in New Orleans. I wasn't happy. Where was it before? And then now I'm not happy. But now that you found the coven, you found happiness. But it's kind of the scene telling us it's like, hey, you're in trouble right now because you're happy at this point.
Well, and then Louis throws it back in her face, saying, because when she says that you chose him over me, another one over me, he throws it back in her face and says, well, you chose the coven over me.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now live in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sit in it, sister.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love. As soon as he said that, I started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, exactly. You made your bed. Now lay in it."
Well, basically, she's to give the quote out is specifically that whole spat comes out to Claudia about Louis, about his love for Armand, saying, "Love makes you stupid, makes you fickle and weak and blind. Let me guess, your companion finally, you and him and you." And then where she before was referencing herself before in the same respect and repeating and repeating. And then it gets to that point where she blows off and leaves. And this is where I think there's going to be a downward spiral. And I feel bad for Claudia at this point because she's torn. Now, her love for the coven's got ulterior motives. Louis, who's looking out for her, but also loves Armand and is torn with what would be his sister, daughter, what have you. And his not wanting to be involved with the coven at all. And then we get this sweet little, hey, I'm going to show you around this museum with Armand. Now, that was a great scene. All
Yes.
because I loved seeing Armand flying up as Louis was walking around the spiral staircase and
Well, walking
Armand's
with Lestat.
and
too.
also with Lestat as well. So
All I
thought
could think of is Armand is lazy and doesn't want to get his steps in.
but I just enjoyed it for the fact that we got a little bit of history of Armand, and he talks about what it was Marius that turned him, but he was also put into slavery because he was in New Delhi and he found out and he realized once he was sold into slavery for this, and he was on this boat. The only way he was able to turn by his masters when he got really ultimately sick, I believe. And then later on, it's like he wound up being sent off by his master to go to France, I believe, and start.
No, he got sent by the Roman coven.
Okay.
The Roman coven, or the Rome coven, killed his master and him, set their place alight, and then they took him and made him part of the Rome coven, and then they sent him to France to go take leadership of the French coven, which they said was being run by Magnus at the time.
Yes.
Now, last week, he told us that Magnus was one of his followers who had abandoned them.
Yes.
And this week, he tells us that he was the leader of the Paris coven. That's why I have problems with Armand.
There's a lot of white lies in there, and he can't stick to one story. And I'm waiting for Malloy to bring that up, by the way.
And one of the things that when it comes to this show is that now that they have added Armand, because this whole time everything we've been seeing has been Louis' point of view, and now that you've added Armand, a lot of the stuff that we are seeing, I don't know if it's Armand's point of view of what's going on or it's Louis' point of view of what's going on. Just because, the power dynamic. And so I'm going to be intrigued to see where they take that. And if at some point they're going to be like, we fooled you into believing that this was actually happening, but because we were showing you what, Armand was doing, but in reality, this is what was going on. And so we'll see what happens.
Yes. I would be interested in seeing a scene where maybe Armand is narrating the scene and he says, "Oh, this is what happened." And then like Louis interrupts and he's like, "No, wait, this is how I remember it." Like just like his remembering of the rain or the not rain, the night he went out with his high school pal into the swamp, and he said it wasn't raining, but then he remembers again that it was raining that night because he came home with muddy boots. But it'd be interesting if like a very important scene got sort of rewritten on the fly by how Armand remembers it and then how Louis remembers it.
Exactly.
One thing that we haven't talked about is that Armand is starting to show his true colors here, and that color is asshole because he goes up to Claudia and grabs her by the neck. See, people seem to love grabbing Claudia by the neck and pushing her up against a wall and telling her that she's going to perform her role and she's going to be happy about it, or he's going to tell the whole coven that she killed her maker.
Yeah.
And that's when she gets mad and goes to Louis and says, "How dare you tell him?" And he said that, Louis tells him that he knew from the beginning, from the moment they met. But, Claudia's like, "Well, you filled in all the details, didn't you?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Well, Louis basically told Claudia, it's like he read our minds. He already knew. And she goes, "And you filled in the gaps, basically, because of your infatuation with him." So basically, he knew already everything. And her fear is that the coven's going to find out, which obviously they're on the trail of being vampire detectives at this point, and they're looking to find that. And you could see Santiago's want for leadership of the coven and his hate for Claudia, even though he tries to rope in and manipulate her to some degree. So I see this relationship between Claudia and Santiago going extremely south. I would not be surprised if the dressmaker finds a sudden death path because of Santiago, and then Santiago blaming it on Armand or something, saying, "Well, talk to your major. He did that." And then,
and if you notice,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and at the end, when Santiago and his little crew are they're making their plans and speaking telepathically to each other, they start calling Santiago Maître.
Yes, they did.
So their alliances are changing, and this little coup is about to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's why Armand had a little lovey-dovey, let's go to the private museum. Oh, you manipulated this guy for us to get in here. And, oh, well, I did that because, no, you did that because you wanted to. And it was Louis pointing it out to Armand that he's his abuse of power at times.
Yeah, and they're in the Louvre there.
Yes, that is the Louvre. Yeah, I kind of figured that when I was watching. Especially, but I love how Armand is, we found out his real name is Armand.
Yep. Armand, something like that. And then he gets saved by Marius, and his name changes to Amadeo.
Yes.
Which is this name when he's in the painting from the 1500s.
And he hasn't had a painting in over 400 years.
Yes.
That he states.
That's very interesting.
And he misses that. And I think that it was a way for him to say, hey, nobody's captured me in paint, print, or film in any way. Now, mind you, Louis already has a picture, and they do talk about that, and it's blurred slightly. And even the guy who's looking to purchase the pictures from Louis had stated that wasn't normal. It's as if the person did not want to be captured in that way. So I found that interesting, but a lot of it adds into the whole artistry and everything. And Louis is still, to this day, even during the interview with Malloy, he's still proud of his pictures from that time. And obviously we know that both they love their paintings because they are art dealers in the real world at this point, present day, and they're making deals as we saw last episode because they had to excuse themselves and they had to go over, and there was an argument over the pricing and what was going on with one of the art pieces that they were selling.
Yeah, we can see in the scene with the art dealer and Louis that he's very good at managing things, which is very human for a vampire.
Yes.
You don't do actual work as a vampire. You might be an actor or something like that, but it seems like most vampires don't go and get some sort of career. But Louis is very good at that. I mean, he bought a piece from this art dealer, and then 3 months later resold it at a higher price. So he's really good at those management business like dealings.
Well, considering their flat or wherever they're living right now, where Daniel Malloy is with them, and how they have a servant named, Rashid, who's taking care of their every whim, and they have that nice daylight room where they could sit there. So obviously they are well taken care of amongst over the 100 years. They took care of their own finances. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Talamasca knows. It's like a majority of the rich are vampires, by the way.
I mean, at this point, you have years to accumulate all that wealth, and and by either stealing it or manipulating
interest.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna bring up in this episode, we do see Armand pretty much cracking because he is confronted and challenged by Santiago, because he's pretty much like, it's interesting that you just allow, like, nobody's allowed to roam without a coven, yet you allow Louis to be without a coven. And so Armand you just start seeing him crack, and how he handles his crew, and then how he lashes out at Claudia, and how he lashes out at Santiago when he's hiding behind the pillar, and just so we're starting to see him crack. So and I think even now in the present, during this interview, he's starting to lose control of the situation, and so I feel like he's trying to like get it back into control, especially when they go into the room and they start to fight, and he goes, "I take it back," and Louis like, "Yeah, you better take it way the fuck back."
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, so Armand's starting to lose some of his grips on these individuals, so I'm wondering how that's going to play out as well.
Yeah, he's losing his cool amongst the coven.
Yes.
I'd like to go back to that vampire rap party, as I called it.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
They're vampires. Why on earth do they need to go to a restaurant, except that they're very theatrical theater people and they have to have a rap party, even though they probably haven't wrapped their show with Claudia yet, because they said that she'd be doing it for the next 50 years. But they're all at the restaurant, and Louis sitting there at the end of the table with Claudia, talking to her about this amazing Paris art scene. And he's like those annoying friends you just have who probably just read one book of Jean-Paul Sartre, and now they're all talking about philosophical existentialism. And he's like, Santiago's had his, like, he's on his last nerve. He's like, I can't take it anymore. He starts mimicking Louis word for word, like using his mental ability to know exactly what Louis is going to say and start mimicking it right back at him.
Yeah.
He tries to ignore him for a minute.
And then he
starts
just loses
to use his mimicking to, like, completely sound like Louis. And I think they must have been dubbing Jacob Anderson's voice over Ben Daniels there.
Mhm.
But I mean, he all of a sudden points out the fact that Louis does not really have a Chicago accent, that it sounds more like a New Orleans accent because he's an actor and he has an ear for accents. And he suddenly mentions that it sounds like Louis got a New Orleans accent. And like that, Louis at the end of the table, like snagging Santiago's tongue.
Yep.
I just absolutely love that. That was a really fun vampire scene, but I just love that Santiago finally gets the digs in with Louis because he's been like silently hating him this whole time because Louis gets to go off and do whatever he wants and everyone else has to follow Coven rules.
Yeah.
And just because he's Armand's boo, he gets the freedom of doing whatever he wants.
Exactly.
Yep. Let's see here. I do want to bring up the dressmaker because I was afraid that we weren't going to go that direction and give Claudia the companionship with that female role. One thing that I was informed by Billy is that there is a time period where Claudia decapitates a woman and decapitates herself and puts her head on top of the body of a woman to see if she could like heal her head onto a woman's body. And so I was very intrigued by this because I was like, that would have been a very interesting thing to see happen. I know that's kind of gruesome and most likely not going to happen in the show. But when he told me that, I was like, oh, what a like way to go to think to yourself, like maybe I can just, sew my head onto to this woman's body and I can control this body and be a grown woman. But
Yeah.
but
I
I
would
do
say
like
I
that
know about that, but
uh-huh.
it's in another book, not the two that are being covered now. So I
Oh,
won't say anything about it, but I won't also say that they may not try something like that.
oh, that's interesting. Okay. I wasn't sure what book it was in. I don't remember reading about it, so I'm wondering.
It's one that I
Um,
haven't gotten to yet. I've just started on Queen of the Damned myself.
It's an
okay.
interesting story nonetheless, but that shows how deep the books go as far as
Hmm.
when it comes to Claudia. It's probably not something we're going to see on the show because it's so
Yeah.
probably extreme for that.
Yeah.
They would have to be NC-17 at that point.
That is true. But I
Yeah.
do like I'm glad that they're kind of coming back around and maybe I know this we're down to 3 episodes. The next episode is pretty much going to go back to the first interview that they had. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that at some point maybe I wonder if Louis is going to turn Madeline or is what if they Santiago kind of I don't know. I feel
Intervenes.
like if there's some sort of like if Santiago is going to feed on to the fact that Claudia is mad at Armand and he's going to use Claudia to like bring down Armand.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm suspecting, and I would actually like to see a play on what we already know. Like, I don't want the showrunners to give us what we already know about Claudia. It would be cool to see something different, but I don't know what it is because that is such a pivotal moment in Louis' life that I don't think they certainly can't make it anything good. I'll just say that. It's going to have to be a tragedy that's coming up.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm trying to
Can we talk
remember.
about
Did they make it clear that Claudia was dead in the first season?
no. we just don't. She's not there. That's all
She's
we
just
know.
not there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh no. Oh no. A new.
Spoilers, everybody. Spoilers.
Oh,
But
interesting. Okay.
I think a lot of the viewers and listeners out there have known for years because things go through the pipeline. People hear things. The book's have
It's
been
a
around
book
for
that's
how
about
long?
50 years old, and the movie is about 30 years old. So you may know
Yeah.
some stuff by now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that last scene with Louis and Lestat when Louis says, "Let's go for a hunt," and
Mhm.
takes Lestat out in the rain. That
Yes.
scene just broke my heart. And I
Yeah.
guess it's because it's just from the knowledge that I have of Lestat from the book. So he could be this really horrible character that we see through Louis's eyes in season 1, who took Louis like thousands of feet up into the sky and dropped him. But I'm just feeling, if we're trying to stay close to the core of book Lestat, that maybe not all of that's true. Not that he's not an arrogant asshole, because he is sometimes, but I've always loved Louis and Lestat, and it just made me so sad there because Louis is basically talking to himself and having the conversation he would have liked to have had with Lestat had he and Claudia not tried to kill him and throw him in a box and take him to the dump. But I thought it was so sweet and so poetic, and they're sitting there in the rain, and Lestat asks Louis why this suit, and he
Oh,
says it's because
yes.
it's my
Oh.
favorite.
The red suit.
Yes.
Yep. And he's got his Louis initials stitched in the inner pocket for where his ticket pocket is.
Mhm. So that it can always caress his, and that it doesn't say, but he's thinking, so it can always caress my heart.
and
And I have a
Oh,
feeling
my
we won't see
Lanta.
Lestat for a little while, because I think
Yes.
that was his
he was
his sort
fading
of
away
goodbye
at
for the
that point.
audience.
Yeah, he was
Mhm.
fading during that scene because it was as if Louis was letting him just go at
Yeah,
that
'cause
point.
even he says, "We're not going for a hunt, aren't we?"
Mhm.
And I was just like, "Oh no." Yeah.
And I think Lestat says you're going to end it with him or something like that. And Louis thinks for a minute and then looks at him and says, "Yeah," but Lestat, Dream Lestat, is thinking him as in Armand,
Yes,
but it's really Lestat that he's letting go of.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pobrecito.
And then in steps Armand with his bogey hat, and we get Casablanca, but instead of leaving Paris and saying we'll always have Paris, Louis tells Armand he's going to stay in Paris with him.
Yeah. Until it burns down.
Exactly.
And then they all lived happily ever after the end, correct?
Yeah, sure. That's all I had for favorite moments, thoughts on the characters and what was going on within the story. Do you guys have anything else?
I will say that I did not like how the episode ended. I felt like it was
A cliffhanger. It just shut off, right?
yeah, like
Not
he's
even a
listening to
cliffhanger. It like broke halfway through a sentence.
yeah, like it wasn't like I don't know. It just seemed like he was listening to like someone being attacked. I'm assuming it was him, and like the episode ends, and it's like on the next, and then all of a sudden it shows a preview for the next episode, and I'm like, wait, what? I was like, is my internet like what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, I had to rewind it because I'm like, did the thing freeze? Did it cut off the end? What happened?
Yeah, same. I'm like, what? This is a weird way to end the show.
That's how they're messing with us. Stay tuned. Here's
Now we're
a sneak
starting
peek
to
next week.
question our own reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
Right.
Freaking Armand, stop it.
Somebody broke the Matrix.
Oh no.
I did like my one note is that Santiago finds the journal that Claudia had written in Lestat's own blood
Oh yes.
and takes it with him.
Yeah. The dead giveaway. Not to make a pun about it, but yeah,
Yep.
it's dead. blood giveaway.
Yeah, the firing, the smoking gun,
Literally.
essentially.
Yeah, we could smell his blood. We know who he was.
I don't have any quotes, but do you guys have any quotes?
I have a couple left.
All right.
Lara, do you have any?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You want to go through them?
Yeah, I like this one was more a delivery that I liked than the quote. The quote wasn't that funny, but the guy playing the playwright Sam is hilarious. I love him. He's so funny. I love his delivery when Armand says, "Your nomadic passion, Claudia. Oh, your playwright, an apology." And Claudia goes, "Sorry, Sam." And Sam's like, "Oh, you're grand." He's just so funny every time, and he's the one last episode who said that the rats found the heart. He's just great comic relief. I love him.
Yeah, that is true.
And I always love a Lestat quote, and then this one it was, "What's the secret? Oh, I'm the secret? Do you notice how hot the room gets when you talk about the secret?"
That's why I'm liking the stat a little bit more, because he does those little, it's like
a nuanced joke.
The quips, the cattiness, everything. I love it.
I love it.
And my last one that I also liked that Santiago said to Claudia, he talks about Armand's tender affections for Louis, but then he says tender can turn to Tinder. A little bit foreshadowing there.
Yes.
And my last one was the interplay between Claudia and Madeline, because Madeline says, "Your French is still ugly, like your doll outfit." And Claudia says, "I agree. I just wouldn't say it because it's rude and obvious." And those two are just great. I love how they bump heads, but it actually makes them like each other more.
That is, that is true.
Do you need a ride?
And we didn't even get to see her ride on Claudia's little Vespa, little vampire gang Vespa.
I only have a couple left from what I've already salt and peppered in, but one would be from Malloy, which I think is hilarious too because it shows my age. But it's when he's sifting through the pictures and looking at his notes and everything. He goes, "I can't even read anything I wrote before Michael Jackson's hair went on fire."
Yes.
And the last one I would have would be definitely Armand to Santiago after he clutches him from the darkness and pulls him in and says, "Too old to play Hamlet, too young to play Polonius. Know your role, Vesp, or join your maker in oblivion." And it was like the most demonic I've seen Armand so far.
Yeah.
But that's about it. That was all I have for quotes.
Great. Should we see if we have any feedback sent to us this week?
Yes, in fact, we do. We don't have any voicemails, which is very odd, but we do have Facebook comments, which I was surprised at. So thanks for those who sent in some feedback. So if anybody wants to read those, I have them in the doc. Can you see them?
I can read Becky's.
Go ahead.
If Danny wants to do the next one.
Okay.
Becky Fenner Anderson sent us this, and she said, "Hi all, enjoying the pod. Fun fact, I was picked to be one of a 7-person focus group about this show. We didn't know until the first 2 episodes were sent what we were going to review. I was so excited to see it was Interview with a Vampire. We watched the first 2 raw episodes and were able to provide feedback on likes, dislikes, and helped pick the show logo. It was a blast." Wow, that's really interesting. I think she should send us more information on how that whole thing went and what she thinks of the show.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I apologize ahead of time because I'm probably going to butcher this. So, Elisa, how would you pronounce that last name?
Uranga?
Uranga?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let us know if we're wrong, Elisa.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Wow. The tragic life of Armand, never trusting, always controlling. He is so desperate and so messed up. Yes, very
We
much
agree
so.
completely.
And a life of trauma has made him a very needy and untrusting vampire.
That is true.
Yeah, well, finding out that he was a sex slave and not really makes more sense of why he's so needy and wanting affection
Yeah.
and
Although
seeking
I
it.
was a little upset to hear that he, at least in this version of the story, his parents sold him into slavery because in the books he was very well loved by his parents, and it was an encounter, I think, with the Turks in the forest. They captured him and sold him into slavery.
Hmm.
That's good.
I
Big
can't wait to get
difference.
to those books.
Pretty close to the story that was in Interview with the Vampire that he recounts to Lestat.
Hmm.
Thanks for the feedback, everyone. Love to hear from more people how they're liking the show. I don't think it gets as many props as it should, and I think it's a really awesome and well done show.
Yes.
Well, to submit your feedback, just like Becky and Elisa did, all you have to do is leave us an email or a voicemail at talk@podcastica.com. If you head to podcastica.com, there is a handy voice message link as well. So you could actually record your voice. We'll get it. Jason usually forwards it to me. Or you could email me at adrenalinecinema@gmail.com. And you could just type out your thoughts in an email or just record your voice and send it as an attachment. You could also go to our social media links like facebook.com/podcastica. We are found on Twitter at Podcastica and Instagram at House Podcastica. Or you could go to Adrenaline Cinema Podcast on Instagram. Or you could go to Pirate Core Entertainment and find all those links and follow us there and send feedback when we do the promotion for episode, which we have put up. So I thank you all for been submitting, and we are thankful for that. Keep it coming if you can. So while you're at the podcastica.com website, if you haven't already, please check out all the other podcasts on the Podcastica network, like Welcome to the Apocalypse, Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast, which they're on season 3 at this point. The Cast of Us, or The Last of Us. Yeah, it's The Cast of Us. And their
Yes.
rewatch and of season 2 of The Walking Dead. They're going back as if they already did their first viewing, but they're doing a rewatch and going back, as I like to call, back to the well and watching it again and putting in new thoughts into what's going on. You could hear me also on Dead Boy Detectives, which is the Sandman cast that I do with Jamie Dimmick. We're covering Dead Boy Detectives season 1. We have a new episode coming out soon. I'm forgetting which episode number. I'm thinking it's number 6 or 7. But check us out there. You could actually find that on podcastica.com. You could easily correct me because I'll have to do my homework soon. Anyhow, you could go listen to Run for Your Lives as well with Daphne and Paik, and you could hear me on an upcoming episode as we cover Godzilla -1. Lara, Danny, do you have any things that you would want to mention, other podcasts that you would recommend?
Well, it's not in the Podcastica network, but we three here, we like the show. We love the story.
Mm-hmm.
We've read some of the books and we've seen the movie. But if you want to deep dive into Interview with the Vampire and the entire Vampire Chronicle universe, there is a podcast called The Articulate Coven, and they are huge mega fans of Anne Rice. So you can also deep dive into that one as well, as since they are also covering Interview with the Vampire.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm going to add that to my list. I am currently listening to something that's outside of Podcastica, because I'm a murderino. So I don't know if you guys have heard of My Favorite Murder.
Oh,
I've been
I've heard
listening
of
to
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I love that podcast. I listen to it weekly because I'm a true crime fanatic.
Nice.
Awesome.
So yeah,
So you highly recommended for true crime fans.
yes. If you like true crime and the Mondays they release minisodes, which is people write in their stories, and those are always my favorite because just people's,
Encounters.
encounters with
Okay.
close encounters with like murders and stuff, and it's just funny stories and heartfelt stuff. So yes, I definitely recommend.
Awesome. Cool. Like always, you could always hear me on another podcast called Panels to Pixels Podcast. Currently, we're covering season 1, Dark Matter. So Steve and I are covering that. Eventually, move into Deadpool Wolverine when that movie comes out, and then right into The Boys. So hopefully, I can convince our one and only friend, the pod father himself, Jason Kabasi, because he loves The Boys. Maybe he could come on for an episode or two. Just to join us and have fun and talking about the carnage that is The Boys with this new season that's coming out. So yeah, check that out. All you have to do is look for Panels to Pixels podcast, not regular Panels to Pixels, everybody, because you'll get our friend Josh, who is overseas with a British accent. But other than that, that's all I have. What do we have coming up?
Next week we are covering season 2, episode 4. Oops, hold on, that's not correct. We're on episode 5. Okay, so next week we are covering season 2, episode 5. Don't be afraid. Just start the tape.
Awesome. Well, I think that was our coverage for the episode, and I think we talked a lot about it. I'm Mark.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Lara.
And this was the Vamp Cast.
Thanks for listening.